When Super Mario Bros. 1 came out, it was a video game masterpiece. But now, it's almost 40 years old. Surely with our modern technology, we can make it better. Well, this all started about a month ago, when I decided I wanted to try my hand at VR game development. Now, I'm already kind of working on a big project, so I didn't want to start working on another big original project, but instead I decided to make a smaller side project, and that's where VR Mario came from. Now, I don't know anything about VR game dev, and I mean just 2 months ago I'd never made a 3D game, so I went onto YouTube and found a series about VR game development by Valem, and within minutes I had a fully functional VR camera in my game, and just a little bit after that I got the hands added. So now I can grab stuff and pick it up and throw it and whatever this is. And lastly, I got the player movement set up. And all this happened in one recording. It was actually really easy. Maybe a little too easy. Now that the basics were done, it was time to make this game look a little bit more like Mario. Now, this game's pretty old, so there can't be that many sprites. Okay, I know it looks like a lot, but first we can cross off all the Mario and Luigi sprites, because this is a first-person game. And then we can cross out pretty much anything that's not in the first level. Now this is looking a lot more manageable. I decided to start with the basic blocks, because these I can just make a simple texture for, slap it on a material, and put that material on a block. Now that doesn't mean I didn't run into any issues. Shoot, wait, how do I don't even know how to fix this. After I made the first set of blocks, I decided to make my own skybox, which I've never done before. And, it looks okay. I mean, it doesn't look perfect, but I was happy with it. But just sitting in the big empty world was kind of off-putting. I don't know how to explain it. It was just weird. So I figured it was time to add the enemies. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't just drag a Goomba material onto a cube because, well, it's just not very menacing. So I had to make some models. I started by mapping out the Goomba in 2D, and then just kind of eyeballed it to make it 3D. I did take a lot of inspiration from this video by Codycanteatthis. In fact, I just used the same flipping method to get the Goomba animation, so thank you, Cody. I then just repeated the same steps for the Koopa. And while I was making models, I made the pipe, the bushes, and this thing, which is apparently a hill, but I always just thought it was a bush with eyes that just watch you as you play the level. And finally, I made the end castle and the flag. And the game already looks infinitely better. Just walking around, it's much more lively. But right now, there's really not much to do. So the next step is definitely gameplay. Now, Mario is a platformer, so one of the main mechanics of the game is jumping. And originally, I thought I was just going to have the jump button attached to the controller. But this is where I realized the VR aspect of this game could come in handy. You see, when I was setting up the VR controller, I realized that you can easily track the player's height. So, alright, so I just finished the script that should, in theory, check if I'm on the ground, and if I am, and I jump in real life, I should jump in the game. This is so dumb. No, it didn't work. Oh my god, I thought I was gonna break my knees. Oh my god, maybe I need to turn the jump force down a little bit. Alright, it was at 2. It is now at 0.1. Okay. Wait. Okay. Well, let's see if I can jump on this block. Alright, well, I call that a success. Oh god, I can't thumbs up. Now, Mario's first level only has 2 different enemies, the Goomba and the Koopa. And they both work basically the same way. They walk in a direction until they either hit something and turn around, or walk right off the edge. So, this shouldn't be too hard to script. Alright, I think this should work. Let's first test it on the Goomba. Alright, it works. That was really easy. And we can just do the same for the Koopa and it should work just fine. What? I think this Koopa was cursed. I mean, it just didn't work at all. And one time, when I was just testing around, it did this. I did not code it to do that, but after a lot of adjusting, I finally got the Koopa to work. And now they both walk until they hit a wall, and then they turn around. Currently, when you run into an enemy, instead of taking damage, it just kind of spins out of control. So next I began work on the power-ups. I first started by modeling the mushroom, and then I wrote a script to manage all the power-up states, which is probably not the most effective script I've written, but it's like I always say, if it's not broke, don't try to change it because you'll probably mess something up. Now, the other issue I ran into with the mushroom was that in the games, if you collect the mushroom, Mario grows twice his size. But in VR, I felt like it'd be more like you're floating. So I decided just to make the hands larger. And lastly, for the mushroom movement, I just used the same script as the Goomba. But now it was on to the harder, but arguably more fun power-up, the Fire Flower. In regular Mario, when you have the Fire Flower, you can just tap a button and it shoots a fireball out of your hand. But in VR, I realized you could actually summon the fireball in your hand and throw it. So I was very excited about this one. But this is also where things took a turn for the worst. You remember back in the beginning of the video where I talked about how easy it was to set up VR. And all this happened in one recording. It was actually really easy. This is where I'd regret not actually paying attention to the tutorials. All I needed was a script that could detect if you'd press the back trigger, and if you had, it would spawn a fireball prefab. So I went to the documentation. What? Why is this so complicated? I just need one button. But finally, I figured out how to detect if you would press the back trigger. And then I ran into some other issues. Alright, now hopefully, if I've done everything right, this should spawn a fireball prefab in my hand. Okay, okay, that's not quite what I was looking for. I eventually got it to work. But now you can summon a fireball and launch it at an enemy. And just to make it fair to the monsters, I finished the damage system, which is only kind of broken. Now at this point, the last major game mechanic is the pipes. And I pretty much did the exact same thing I did for the jumping. I just checked if the player was on a pipe, and if they ducked under a certain height, then they would enter the subworld, which currently has nothing in it. Now luckily, I didn't have to make any new models for this. I just went back into Sprite and made the underground texture for the bricks and the ground. And everything works perfectly. No flaws whatsoever. And for the gameplay, that was mostly it. All I needed now was some finishing touches. So first, I set up the question mark blocks so that they actually spawn coins and items. And I had quite possibly my favorite feature of the whole game. You can now punch bricks and they smash into a bunch of tiny pieces. It's so much fun. And it was also at this point I realized I hadn't yet added the ability to jump on enemies, which is kind of a key part of Mario, and it really wasn't too bad. I just added another collider on top of the Goomba to track if you had jumped on it, and if you had, it destroyed it. But then there was that stupid Koopa. You see, when you jump on a Koopa, instead of dying, it turns into a shell. I had a lot of issues with the shell. But after a long time, I finally got it to somewhat work. And that was all I had left. And with that done, all that was left to do was to recreate 1-1. So, using a reference sheet, I began placing all the blocks. And it was honestly kind of relaxing. Alright, I've finally finished. Time to try this thing out. So it turns out, placing over 10,000 blocks in VR is not very efficient and leads to a lot of lag. So I needed to optimize the game a little bit. So all I did is take out the huge chunks of blocks and replace them with one big block. It does look kind of weird from the side, but you'll never really see that while you're playing. Alright, now it's time to... My enemy AI just completely broke. And then while trying to fix it, I just broke it even more. What? But finally, I got it all finished and I had a mostly functional version of Mario in VR. Overall, I'm very happy with how the game turned out. Sure, it does have its bugs, but I still achieved most of my goals. Now, I'm sure at this point there's some of you wondering, where is Black Space Part 2? And no, it's not canceled. There were a few reasons why I didn't get it out, but one of the main reasons is I just didn't expect that video to do nearly as well as it did. So while I was busy this month, I just kind of pushed it to the side and figured I'd pick it back up once I had more time. Because I did want to spend some time to make it actually good. But if all goes to plan, Black Space Part 2 should come out in April. Or maybe early June if I need more time. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're new, go watch the previous videos. And, subscribe.